Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right in to demystify the complex strategies of someone you've almost certainly heard of, one of the world's most legendary and, honestly, heavily discussed speculators, George Soros. We're going to use our source material to trace the incredible arc of a life completely defined by crisis, philosophy, and billion-dollar convictions. Okay, let's dive into this.
Now, to really understand the massive financial and philanthropic empire this man built, we have to look at his dramatic life arc. Because, this isn't just a story about numbers on a screen or Wall Street trades. Not at all. This is a journey that actually begins with a young man surviving a massive historical crisis as a refugee in Budapest, and then slowly forming those unshakable billion-dollar convictions that would eventually reshape global financial markets. Here's the agenda for today. First up, a childhood forged in crisis. Second, the philosophical foundation. Third, launching the empire. Number 4, 1992's infamous Black Wednesday. Fifth, becoming a philanthropic giant. And finally, number 6, the ultimate lesson, embrace uncertainty. Let's get to it.
So let's start at the very beginning. Section 1, a childhood forged in crisis. Born in 1930, Budapest, Hungary.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that during the Nazi occupation, his family had to survive by using false identities right there in 1940s Budapest. I mean, just think about that for a moment. He was learning to navigate literal life-or-death volatility as a teenager. The source material actually refers to this as his survivor's edge. That early exposure to existential, absolute risk, it fundamentally shaped his lifelong tolerance for extreme uncertainty. And, as we'll see, that's a trait that absolutely defined every major move in his investing career.
Moving right along to Section 2, the philosophical foundation, and specifically the influence of Karl Popper. Fast forward to 1947, and Soros emigrated. He left post-war Hungary for London, arriving with practically nothing but pure ambition. He ended up enrolling at the London School of Economics, and well, this is where he had a true philosophical awakening. He studied under the philosopher Karl Popper and deeply absorbed Popper's concept of the open society. Basically, this was the radical idea that nobody, absolutely nobody, holds the ultimate monopoly on the truth, and societies only flourish when differing views are tolerated. Now, this wasn't just some passing academic phase. As you'll see, this specific framework would eventually become the guiding star for his entire monumental investing career, and later, his massive global philanthropy.
And this brings us to a really crucial academic collision. So on one side, you've got the widely accepted dogma of the efficient market hypothesis. The idea that markets perfectly reflect underlying reality. Well, Soros fundamentally rejected this. No way, he thought. Instead, he developed what he called his theory of reflexivity. He argued that markets don't reflect reality, they actually create it. He believed that the biases of the participants feed directly back into prices, completely distorting the fundamentals in these self-reinforcing loops. So in his view, markets are inherently unstable. They are constantly prone to bubbles. He wasn't just trying to beat the market, guys. He was operating on a completely different understanding of what the market even was.
Armed with this radical philosophy, he was ready to make his mark. Section 3, launching the empire, from a clerk to a legendary speculator.
So after working as a simple clerk at a London merchant bank, he crosses the Atlantic and heads to Wall Street in the 1960s. And his financial ascent here is rapid, almost unbelievable, really. By 1969, he founded the Double Eagle Fund. Just 1 year later, 1970, he launches Soros Fund Management and the legendary Quantum Fund. Now get this, from the 1970s all the way through the 90s, Quantum delivered an average annual return of roughly 30% over 3 decades. 30%! That is a staggering statistic, and it absolutely cemented Quantum as one of the most successful hedge funds in history.
And this brilliantly illustrates the engine behind those unprecedented returns, a highly specific strategy we can call the Soros mindset. You see, he didn't believe in diversifying, he believed in concentration. Step 1, one-way bets. When his thesis finally formed, he bet enormously. Step 2 was leverage. He used borrowed capital to massively amplify his returns during those boom-bust cycles. And step 3, going back to his philosophy, reflexivity. He used his unique insight to exploit those feedback loops where prices distorted the fundamentals. Basically, he was getting in before the rest of the crowd even recognized the inflection point.
Which brings us to the absolute climax of his financial career. Section 4, 1992, Black Wednesday, the trade that shook the world.
His target here was the British pound. Now, at the time, the pound was artificially pegged within the European exchange rate mechanism, or the ERM, at a rate that Soros calculated was just entirely unsustainable. So what did he do? He built a staggering $10 billion short position against sterling. Yes, you heard that right, $10 billion.
He leveraged the quantum fund to the absolute maximum. He was betting everything that the Bank of England simply could not maintain that artificial peg.
The pressure was just immense. The Bank of England tried desperately to defend the currency, even raising interest rates to absolutely punishing levels. But the market pressure, which was heavily driven by Soros's massive short position, simply broke the system. It snapped. On September 16, 1992, the United Kingdom officially conceded defeat and was literally forced to withdraw from the ERM entirely.
So what was the result of that single, highly concentrated, brilliantly timed bet? A breathtaking, unprecedented profit. George Soros earned $1 billion in a single day. $1 billion. That one trade cemented his title forever as the man who broke the Bank of England.
But, the story doesn't end with wealth generation. In fact, it pivots entirely. Section 5, the philanthropic giant and the Open Society Foundations.
Let's move to and see how this builds into something much, much larger. $32 billion. Over the years, through his foundations, he has donated this massive sum. That establishes him as one of history's largest individual philanthropists for sure. He took that immense wealth generated from exploiting market inefficiencies, and directed it entirely toward a brand new goal, funding the institutional survival of democracy itself.
The Open Society Foundations basically took Karl Popper's academic theories, the ones we talked about earlier, and put billions of dollars behind them in the real world. And the missions are vast. We're talking about promoting government transparency and accountability, actively defending human rights and press freedom, and fiercely supporting democratic institutions worldwide. It's the direct, literal application of his wealth to those early foundational philosophical ideals. And finally, we arrive at our final assessment. Section 6. Embrace uncertainty, legacy, and controversy. Now, it's just a matter of public record that his wealth, his ruthless market methods, and his massive philanthropic footprint have made him a highly polarizing figure.
So the crucial point is, to understand the totality of his legacy, we really have to look at three distinct pillars. First, you have the investor, widely regarded as the world's greatest money manager, an absolute master of asymmetric bets. Second, you have the figure, a deeply polarizing political target of conspiracy theories on one side and a celebrated reformer on the exact opposite side. And third, you have the thinker, an advocate for international crisis intervention who always thought far beyond the trade itself.
This explainer leaves us with his ultimate, lasting intellectual impact. He taught that markets are never stable. They're dynamic, they're driven by human psychology, and they are deeply flawed. He essentially built an empire on an honest acknowledgement of human fallibility. So analyzing his life leaves us with a pretty provocative question to consider. If markets and systems are never truly stable, do you have the courage to recognize the inflection point, question the accepted dogma, and bet against the consensus? Thank you so much for exploring the source material with us today.